When the 650 twins were announced by Royal Enfield and subsequently when we rode those two motorcycles, the Interceptor and the Continental GT, we were very sure that engine is going to find application in at least a couple of different kind of products. One product could spawn into an ADV with slightly different gear ratios and better torque delivery, and the other one could be a cruiser, which is exactly what has happened with the Super Meteor 650. Specific to this motorcycle, the design is absolutely bang on. I think it looks very good, very appealing, and it has that big bike feel for a mid-capacity engine. Starting right from the front, I think the fenders are nicely defined. The tail lamp is a tastefully done unit. Then you have these dual round instrument clusters. One, of course, is about all the readouts on speed and all sorts of info that you need. And this is your direction meter, or this is something that is going to give you the navigation. The tank is nice, fat, and almost a teardrop shape. The midsection is beautifully bold and very fat again. And this entire theme of being broad and bold is continued to the rear end, which is rounded off by this big fat fender again. Overall, a very nice looking motorcycle. In terms of features, Royal Enfield has taken a no-frills approach, but other bits are very very and I really like the attention to detail that has gone into this motorcycle. For example, the covers for the fuel injection system reek quality, and they also give it a very individualistic look on the road. And the fact that the entire engine and the gearbox casing is beautifully finished in a nice shade of grey with contrasting elements is very cool. And all that complements the chrome treatment of the exhaust. So yeah, I think not really a lot to talk about when it comes to plain features and ticking off the boxes of a brochure, but generally fit and finish levels are very high, materials used are of great quality, and overall, yeah, it's turned out pretty nicely. Back when I rode the Continental GT and the Interceptor, I came back with a view that the nature of this engine fits the Interceptor more than the Continental GT. And I always thought that this engine is going to suit a more relaxed cruiser sort of an application more. And that's exactly what we've got here. But Royal Enfield has done some work. The airbox is different, and they have also altered the entire exhaust system. And that's exactly what has been done for a very defined audio signature. Now the power and torque figures remain identical to the twins, 47 horsepower at 7250 RPM, and the torque of 52 Newton meters, well, that has been altered. It now comes in at about 400 RPM higher than the twins, which is kind of weird because this being a cruiser, lazy, relaxed motoring, so I just don't get the sense of the peak torque being delivered a few RPMs higher. But otherwise, the engine essentially remains the same in the way it behaves. But the way the entire architecture has been executed by Harris Performance, that is based in London, it's a job well done. And the one big thing over here is that the engine is now the stressed member of the bike itself, which is something that you can spot right over here through the bolts. When it comes to the riding geometry, this one feels very different to the Royal Enfields from the past. This one has a bit of a stretched out feel to it, and I'm not a big fan of legs completely straight out like some Harleys have you doing. And that's why it just kind of feels very nice and almost the best sort of a solution, because you have a bit of an angle when you're seated in your knees and you don't just stretch out like you're driving some massive chopper of sorts. So in terms of the way you sit on the bike, it's actually pretty decent. Your arms are nicely rested on the bars as well. Shorter riders will definitely have a little bit of a problem, especially when you're changing gears and you're applying the brake or the clutch. But overall, it's not a bad place to be. And the bike further benefits from the seats. Yes, the foam could be slightly softer to give you that nice and cushy feel, but the design is very nice and you have a great amount of support at the back, and the front just tapers, so you hug the tank in a very nice and confident way, which really helps because if you're going at a decent clip, that is going to give you a little bit of a confidence. One of the biggest changes in the Super Meteor compared to the 650 twins, the Interceptor and the Continental, comes in the form of the suspension. Now, the twins, they came with Gabriel suspension systems, and this one has been done up by Showa. And this is the first time that Royal Enfield has given an upside-down fork system to any motorcycle. Up front, you have 4.5 inches of travel, but these are non-adjustable forks. And then you have the twin shocks at the rear. These also have 5 levels of preload adjustment, but a travel of just about 4 inches. So overall, you're looking at 4.7 at the front, 4 inches at the back, 19-inch rims at the front, 16-inch rims at the back. So you can sense a bit of a geometry thing going on over here. It's to basically give you that defined cruiser feel. A little tallish stance at the front, nice and settled sort of feel at the back. If you have ridden Royal Enfields in the past, and if you've also sampled specifically the 650 twins, the Interceptor and the Continental, I would say that you shed all your preconceived notions when you sample this motorcycle. This thing is completely different from anything that you would have expected or experienced from Royal Enfield in the past. The way this thing rides is very, very different, and it's all a matter of how laid back are you ready to be. Because this thing is definitely very, very laid back. It does not really answer your urgent calls of steering very rapidly into corners. This thing is going to take its own sweet time. Well, it has its own moments, it has its own moods also, because when you're riding it, you feel that the front kind of just starts to pull you in when you are in a bend. And it's a very non-organic feeling. Not that it is vague and it is going to throw you off, but you just feel the heft being pulled in. And that's not very cool. But it's more the ride quality that defines this motorcycle. I think because this has been positioned as a cruiser, as a long distance mile muncher, the suspension could have been softer. The fronts I can still live with, but the back, it just goes for a complete toss. The rear feels very, very stiffly sprung. And even at the softest of the preload settings, it's not really going to make so much of a difference anyway. It does give you a fair bit of confidence, and this is a very, very steady motorcycle when you're going at 3-digit speeds, and it has great amount of stability overall. But just when you're transitioning, it feels like you're riding some bulk. And as I said, this is a bulky motorcycle, but just the fact that you don't feel the front end connected to you and the inputs not getting translated into instant changes of direction, that just is a very unnerving experience sometimes. Another big complaint that I have is from the tires. While yes, we all know that these tires have been made specifically for this motorcycle by Seat, I'm not so sure about the grip levels, I'm not so sure about the compound either. Yes, they're going to last you a lifetime and beyond, but really what you need from a motorcycle of this sort is that nice cushy feel from the rubber. The sidewall compresses beautifully, grips you properly as well on the road. It just has none of that really exhibiting properly. And anyway, Royal Enfield has worked with Pirelli in the past for the twins. So the fact that the manufacturer moved from some very, very good rubber to something which is honestly very mediocre for its flagship product is not a very good thing. The braking system largely remains unchanged from the twins. The only slight difference is that the disc size at the rear has gone up to 300 mm from 240 that is found on the Interceptor. Overall, that has also enhanced the braking, which needs to happen because this is also a much heavier motorcycle. But on the performance side of things, I don't have any complaints. The progression on the lever feels very good, and the bite also comes in just where you expect it to. So overall, in terms of the braking performance, this is very, very well sorted. What you get with the Super Meteor 650 is not only a beautiful tribute to the original Super Meteor, but also something that builds that legacy and carries into the future. The classic design, of course, remains, but it has also got some modern touches, beautifully finished, and overall the quality is absolutely wonderful. But the highlight for me is still this engine. In this application, it just feels a little bit different to the Interceptor. There are still some vibrations that creep in through the bars, through the foot pegs and the seat. Probably it's to do with the all-new frame, but this frame development was necessary because it's exactly that. The frame which gives this motorcycle its central character, which is that of being a cruiser. But it is not a bike which is fault-free. I think the front end could be a lot more fluid, it could be a little bit more communicative, and if it would have been something similar to the Interceptor, this would have been a breeze to ride. And again, for a cruiser, the ride quality is a bit too stiff. This really should have had a bit more pliancy at the rear, the compression could have been better, but overall the odd feeling on the steering married to the stiff suspension at the back, it just does not give you the sense of this being as good a cruiser as you would have wanted it to be. A cruiser should be soft and you should be able to romance it. You cannot romance this motorcycle. You have to really muscle it sometimes, even when you're going at a fair clip along some nice and twisty roads. So in essence, while this is a great motorcycle in a lot of cases, it still falls short in some other cases. But what Royal Enfield has done with the Super Meteor 650 is create something very special. There is nothing else like this in the market right now. At this price point, in this category, there is nothing that can touch the Super Meteor. This makes for a very strong proposition, and if you want a big bike feel, that laid back, relaxed cruising experience, then this fits the bill in a big way.